You've probably spent hours in the gym, sculpting your body, stacking cash to level up your lifestyle, maybe even rehearsing lines to sound charming, but deep down, you still feel lost when it comes to truly connecting with women. Let me ask you this. When was the last time a woman looked at you, really looked at you, and felt safe? Not impressed, not entertained, not excited by your career, car, or cool factor, but safe? See, every woman, no matter how strong she appears, is yearning desperately to be touched, not just physically, but emotionally. And the two places where she wants to feel that touch, they're places you can't reach with your hands. Not with muscle, not with money, not even with charm. She wants to be touched in her heart and in her mind. And if you've never been taught how to do that, I don't blame you. Society has raised men to chase trophies, not tenderness, to dominate, not to understand. But here's the truth no one is telling you. If you learn to touch her heart and her mind, her body will follow voluntarily, emotionally, spiritually. Today, I'm going to show you how. This isn't a game. It's not manipulation. It's emotional intelligence. And if you want to become a high-value man, not just for women, but for yourself, this message is for you. We live in a world obsessed with the physical body counts, gym gains, bedroom tricks, swipe right fantasies. It's no wonder most men believe that what a woman wants is to be touched. But let me tell you something that no locker room conversation, no red pill podcast, and no TikTok dating coach will ever say out loud. A woman wants to be felt more than she wants to be touched. You could have the strongest hands in the room, but if your presence doesn't make her feel seen, safe, and understood, your touch becomes a transaction, forgettable, replaceable. Here's what it really means to feel a woman. It's when you notice the flicker in her eyes, when she's pretending to be okay. It's when you remember the little things, her favorite color, the way she takes her coffee, or the song that reminds her of her late grandmother. It's when you don't rush to solve her problems, but instead sit in the storm with her. Touch can be cheap. It's easy to reach out and hold someone, but to truly feel a woman means connecting with her on a level that most men are too distracted, too insecure, or too emotionally unavailable to reach. And that's why it's rare. That's why it's powerful. That's why it makes you unforgettable. Most women have been touched. Few have been felt. You don't need to be a poet. You don't need to cry on command or lose your edge. But you do need to show up with presence, with intention, with empathy. You need to stop looking at her body as the prize and start seeing her soul as the map. Because here's the truth. When a woman feels emotionally touched, her body responds with ease, with softness, and with trust. But when she feels like just another checkbox, another conquest, her body may submit, but her spirit retreats. Be the man who doesn't just touch her skin, be the man who touches her life. And remember, the deepest intimacy isn't built in the bedroom. It's built in the moments in between, when you choose to feel her. Before a woman opens her body, she opens her mind. And yet, most men skip the step. They focus on the surface, compliments on her curves, attention to her looks, gestures that scream, I want you. But what many don't realize is that a woman's most intimate connection doesn't start with her hips. It starts with her thoughts. Her mind is her first erogenous zone. She craves conversation that goes beyond the shallow. She wants to be stimulated mentally before she's ever touched physically. If your words can't undress her mind, your hands will never matter. Ask yourself, when was the last time you really got curious about a woman? Not just, what do you do? Not just, where are you from? But, what keeps you awake at night? What did you believe about love when you were 12? What's something you've never told anyone because you were afraid they wouldn't understand? That's where the connection lives. Too many men talk at women. They recite rehearsed lines, hoping to impress. But you don't impress a woman into intimacy. You invite her into it by creating emotional safety. And emotional safety starts with deep, intentional listening. It's hearing the tremble in her voice when she talks about her dreams. It's noticing how she lights up when she's in her element. It's engaging her mind with curiosity, not control. The man who knows how to stimulate her thoughts becomes unforgettable. He makes her feel cherished, not conquered, desired, not objectified. And here's the secret. Most high-value men eventually learn. When you captivate a woman's mind, her body follows naturally. You won't have to beg for her attention or affection. She'll give it willingly, enthusiastically, because you gave her what most men never even think to offer: intellectual intimacy. Be the man who reads between the lines. Be the man who hears the pause in her sentence. Be the man who touches her with words, not just fingers. Because when her mind is turned on, everything else, her emotions, her body, her trust, follows in harmony. So before you learn to take off her clothes, learn to open her mind. That's the real seduction. Forget the six-pack. Forget the luxury car. Forget the smooth talk. Do you know what makes a man irresistible to a woman in today's world? It's not just status. It's not even sex appeal. It's emotional safety. Let me break this down for you. In a world that constantly tells women to toughen up, look perfect, and be less emotional, a man who makes her feel safe becomes a sanctuary. Not just physically safe, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually secure. When a woman feels safe around you, she doesn't need to perform. She doesn't need to dim her light or over-explain her emotions. She doesn't have to wear masks or suppress her softness. She relaxes, and in that relaxation, true intimacy begins. So, what does emotional safety look like? It's the way you respond when she's vulnerable. Do you listen without judgment? Or do you try to fix her? Do you hold space for her tears? Or get uncomfortable and shut down? It's in how you handle conflict. Do you raise your voice to overpower her? Or do you stay grounded even when you're angry? It's in how you show consistency. Are you the same man when things are easy and when they're difficult? High-value men create safety, not through dominance, but through presence. And here's the twist. When a woman feels safe, she becomes more sensual, more trusting, more open, more loyal. Not because she's submissive, but because she finally feels like she can exhale. So many men wonder why women pull away after intimacy. Often, it's because the physical act wasn't supported by emotional grounding. She gave you her body, but didn't feel safe giving you her soul. If you want to build real connection, the kind that makes her lean into you emotionally, mentally, and yes, physically, then become the kind of man who's anchored, steady, calm, non-reactive, empathetic. The kind of man who doesn't just protect her body, but guards her spirit. Because safety is the new sexy. And the moment she realizes that your presence is a place she can come home to, not fear, not fake around, not flee from you, see a version of her most men never do. Too many men walk into a woman's life with a clipboard in their mind, scanning, judging, sizing her up against a checklist of what she should be. How attractive is she? How feminine is she? Does she meet the criteria of a wife material woman? But here's the truth. Women don't want to be evaluated. They want to be validated. She's not auditioning for a role in your life. She's a whole person with her own story, her own scars, her own softness and strength. And when she opens up to you, even just a little, it's not an invitation for criticism. It's a cry for connection. Validation is not about blindly agreeing with everything she says. It's about honoring her emotional experience. It's when she shares a fear and you say, "That must be really hard. I hear you." Instead of, "That's not logical. You're overreacting." It's when she talks about a dream that scares her and you say, "You're capable of more than you know." Instead of, "That sounds unrealistic." When a woman feels validated, she feels understood. And when she feels understood, her guard comes down, her heart opens. She lets herself be not who she thinks you want, but who she truly island. Now here's where it gets powerful. Validation builds emotional trust, and emotional trust builds emotional intimacy. And that, my brother, is the glue that holds real, lasting relationships together. So many men wonder why things feel superficial or transactional with women. It's often because instead of being a mirror that reflects her beauty, they become a measuring tape that tells her she's not enough in some way. Be the man who celebrates her essence, not just her effort. Be the man who reminds her that she is seen, not just judged. Because here's the truth. A woman will bloom in the presence of a man who validates her. She'll bring you into deeper parts of herself, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, when she knows she won't be dissected, but held. So put the checklist down. Open your heart, not just your eyes. She doesn't need to be perfect. She needs to be safe, to be real. And when you give her that, she'll give you everything. So many men are performing confidence, performing masculinity, performing success, performing emotional control, like actors auditioning for love instead of simply being worthy of it. But let me tell you something that might sting before it heals. Performance is exhausting, and eventually the mask will slip. You don't need to fake coolness. You don't need to memorize pickup lines. You don't need to morph into whatever you think she wants. Because real women, emotionally mature women, aren't attracted to a performance. They're drawn to presence. To the man who doesn't need to prove he's the man. To the man who can sit in silence and still radiate strength. To the man who walks into the room, not trying to be the loudest, but already knows who he island. Being isn't about being passive. It's about being authentic. It's when your words match your energy. When you say what you mean, and you mean what you say. When your confidence isn't loud, it's calm, rooted, centered. That's the energy that penetrates. That's the energy that women trust. Because here's the thing. Women are intuitive. She can sense when you're wearing a mask. She may not call you out, but she'll pull back. Why? Because performance feels hollow. It feels unsafe. It creates distance. But when you show up as you flaws, and all you give her permission to do the same. And in that space of mutual authenticity, something beautiful happens. Walls drop, pretenses fade, real connection blooms. The man who is, rather than performs, becomes unforgettable, not because he's perfect, but because he's real. And in a world full of filters, scripts, and highlight reels, realness is rare. So take off the mask. Let go of the pressure to impress. You don't need to be a character. You need to be present, grounded in truth, connected to who you are beneath the image. Because if you have to perform to get love, you'll have to keep performing to keep it. And that, my brother, is a prison. Stop performing. Start being. That's where your true power lives. You want to know the real reason many men struggle to connect deeply with women? It's not because they're unattractive. It's not because they're broke. It's not even because they don't know what to say. It's because they haven't learned how to connect deeply with themselves. You can't offer emotional intimacy if you've never given it to yourself. You can't hold space for a woman's feelings when you've been taught to run from your own. You can't touch her heart if yours has been locked behind walls of shame, silence, and self-denial. So many men are walking around emotionally numb, not because they're heartless, but because they were never shown that feeling is strength, not weakness. You were told, man up, don't cry, be tough, get over it. And so you buried your softness, buried your pain, buried your need for comfort, and replaced it with control, silence, or distraction. But here's the truth no one told you. The more you deny your own emotions, the more emotionally unsafe you become for others. Healing begins when you decide to stop running from yourself, when you finally sit with the boy inside who never felt good enough, when you unpack the betrayal you never processed, when you admit the loneliness you've covered with hookups, hustling, and humor. Because when you learn to feel, you learn to love. When you embrace your own emotional world, you stop fearing hers. And suddenly, you become magnetic, not just physically, but emotionally. She feels it. Your calm, your honesty, your wholeness. You stop needing validation from women because you've already given it to yourself. You stop chasing love because you're becoming love. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being present with yourself first. So start asking, what am I feeling right now? What parts of me have I been ignoring? Where do I still need healing? Because your ability to emotionally touch her begins with the courage to emotionally touch yourself. You can't lead her somewhere you've never gone. So go there, feel, heal, reflect. Not for her, for you. Because a man at peace with himself becomes a place of peace for others.